Today on Between the Lines, the resilience of the human spirit with Bryan Bishop. Welcome, I'm Barry Kibrick. Bryan is known as the beloved comic sidekick on the Adam Carolla Show, the most listened to podcast in the world. But just when life seemed like it couldn't get any better, he was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. With his book Shrinkage, Bryan proves how the power of laughter can get us through the darkest times, and personally gave him a new lease on life.
I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old, and it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
Characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of corruption.
I don't get a chance to really talk about what's real, and it's the purpose for me.
Bryan, it's a pleasure to have you here on Between the Lines. Welcome to the show, and I'm glad to hear you're feeling still pretty good.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me, and yeah, excited to be here.
Now, I'm going to start literally at the beginning before we get into, and literally in the beginning, because you do, and it is about your childhood.
Okay.
And you talk about it because I think sometimes when you have this kind of a childhood, it makes you a different kind of a man and or woman, and it benefits people to hear. You were literally the overweight kid with glasses who was the least cool kid in the school and who people picked on, at least in the early years. You grew out of it a little bit later on, but in the early years, you had to deal with that.
Yeah, I wasn't very popular. I just told this story yesterday, literally. I remember being the first kid at my school that I knew of to wear a sports jersey to school. You see kids wearing jerseys, and it's a cool thing to wear, their favorite team or their favorite player. I grew up in the Bay Area near San Francisco, and I wore a San Francisco Giants jersey with Will Clark's name on the back, and it was 1987, and he was the cool player, and I wore it to school thinking, oh, I'll be so cool, I'm wearing a Will Clark jersey, and all day kids were looking at me like, hey, Will, what's up, Will? Looking good, Will. I'm like, well, I'm not Will Clark, I'm just wearing his jersey. So yeah, the thing that should have been cool was very uncool on my back.
and then you make no bones about it. You lost your hair at an early age, and I have another friend that lost their hair at an early age, and I will tell you the one benefit: you're never going to look like you age.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it. But at the time, what could be more traumatic?
You'd think so, and it's funny that you mentioned earlier, like it makes you the person that you are. And this maybe was a little bit of foreshadowing in the book. When my hair started falling out when I was in 6th grade, I wasn't bald, but my hair was falling out. I could tell when I was in 6th or 7th grade. I didn't care that much. I was kind of, what are you going to do? I could get worked up over it, or I could say this is something that's going to happen, and I can't do anything about it. And I've known, I would say the vast majority of people I know who lose their hair, friends of mine and people I know, fret about it. They freak out about it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm losing my hair. I gotta take this, or I gotta comb it this way, or I gotta blah blah blah." And it's like, nah, I never really cared that much. It never bothered me.
And it surely did not affect meeting a beautiful woman. But we're going to get into that later because it's such an important part. And I even begged you to take her over and she's in the green room.
Yep.
So we're going to save it though. But you give two types of advice here. Some of it is serious. Most of it is serious, especially, although some of your tumor tips are not even that serious.
That's right.
One of them is kind of funny. But you also give advice, and one of them is, and I want to read your words exactly. It's called A Small Piece of Advice I Have for Any Parent Whose Teenager is Going Through a Tough Time. Find something that teen loves and find a place where the teen can be celebrated for it. Yeah. And when that finally starts to happen with you later on in high school with creative writing and then even in college, you literally transform.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. So I was all kinds of a nerd in middle school. I was a Saturday Night Live nerd. I was a professional wrestling nerd. But more than anything, I was a journalism nerd. And that's not cool when you're in junior high school. I loved sports writing. I loved reading the sports page every day after school. And I loved journalism. It was a passion of mine. And that's a very nerdy thing. And I was lucky enough when I was in high school to end up at a creative writing program at Northwestern University for high school students. And I went there, and this thing that I had been not mocked for, this thing that I've been ashamed of a little bit, like, oh, I'm into writing and reading and journalism, I was all of a sudden celebrated for. Like, I was around like-minded kids who were into the same thing, writing and creative writing, and it was great to be all of a sudden, oh, this is not something that I should try not to be into. This is something that people love being into, and now I'm around people who love being into it. Whether that thing is space camp or sports camp or whatever it is, there's probably something that your teen is into that there's a larger world out there for. So find that thing.
And you're also aware that you slip back a little bit, because in college, after you get out of college, you lost your thing a little bit. You found that you weren't enjoying your job. You got overweight, and you made a decision, though, I'm going to actively now pursue entertainment. You wanted to get in there. And the first gig you get is now, as I introduced you, still a gig in a sense. I mean, obviously it's way higher up on the food chain. You were a booker for K-Rock out here in Los Angeles for the Love Line, which at that time featured Adam Carolla as one of the co-hosts.
Legendary talk show Loveline. Was on MTV for a while, radio for years. I grew up listening to Loveline. It was syndicated in the Bay Area. I don't deserve that much credit. I was not a booker. I was a phone screener. And in the entertainment world, there's a huge difference between those two. I did the grunt work, but I literally bought the coffee from the store and made the coffee for the show and cleaned up the studio before and after and set it up like they liked it, and in addition to screening calls. So anything to impress.
But that's part of the advice you give as well for all those young people breaking into the business. You can't do enough. Yeah. People don't realize it. If you're waiting for someone to ask you to do something, you're not going to get anywhere. You're the one that's got to be going up there. Can I do this? Can I do that? And in the words you say, you wanted to make yourself indispensable. That's your goal.
Yeah, be indispensable. Even if you are low on the totem pole, if they can't, they being your superiors or your bosses or your coworkers, if they can't envision the office running the same way without you, or the workplace running the same way without you, then you've done a pretty good job. Not to say that I was so valuable to the operation, but I think I brought something, as a lackey, as it were.
And as that lackey, you grew. You went on to the Adam Carolla show when he replaced Howard Stern. Mm-hmm. Now you're still his sidekick. Right. They called you Bald Bryan, I guess. That's the sidekick name, and it is the most world famous podcast. It's the biggest podcast in the world. Yeah. And so you're rolling strong, you're going, you meet and you get engaged to Christy, and you, as your words, I finally found a partner who complemented me perfectly, who improved upon all of my weaknesses. You get engaged, and then boom, you're hit with this, you realize you have a brain tumor.
Yeah. It was 2 months away from our wedding. We were due to be married in 2 months, almost to the day. Yeah, it was pretty heavy.
I was in my mind. I'm thinking when I'm reading, because I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm thinking, why would Christy even stay? Wouldn't it be time to leave now? I mean, you're not married yet. You've got a man who's, we're going to get into this part in a second, who's been pronounced that you have only a very finite time on the planet by a doctor who we will just be known. You name him. I don't know if it's his real name.
It's a fake name.
I could tell. I said I don't think Harold Kumar is a real name.
Dr. Harold Kumar.
I heard that before. I know where that's from.
That is a pseudonym.
Okay, but he's awful, and his practice is awful, and you're devastated. And this woman, she's by your side.
Yeah, she was literally by my side the entire time when I got diagnosed. I often say we got diagnosed because, as I made the point in the book, and maybe we'll get to it later, when you're the caregiver, when you're Christy in my situation, you're in it just as much as the patient. You're diagnosed just as much as the person with the brain tumor. And we were initially told, I remember it clear as day. I said to the doctor when we got the first diagnosis of brain cancer, I said, realistically, what are we looking at? Not knowing how serious it was. And he said, quote, typically in these cases, I say 6 months to a year. And I knew then what a cold sweat really was because I was sweating, but I was freezing.
Well, you said Christy as the caregiver. There is a part in the book that I do want to mention is that one of the things that most people don't realize when a couple is going through this, they're all aware, And there is no doubt the person with the tumor is going to take the priority in everyone's mind, even Christy. But the problem is Christy is going through so much, and no one, in a sense, they're not going up to Christy and saying how you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, literally like that, because they're concerned about you, but she's suffering, and I see it in my own wife. I know my wife suffers more when I suffer than when she suffers. It's just, and it's a phenomena that you hope you have in a beautiful relationship, but it is something that you become aware of, that Christy's suffering as much in a way, or maybe more in a certain way.
Yeah, I often said that I had the benefit of having cancer, of going through treatment, because I was able to go in and get radiation and take chemotherapy, and the effects of the radiation were making me a little bit foggy, and I wasn't able to pay as close attention to the world as I normally would, and I had the benefit of being a little bit out of it. Christy was clear-headed and ineffectual. She had to sit there and watch, this man that she was about to marry, ostensibly for the rest of her life, suffer through this horrible treatment, this horrible diagnosis, and not be able to do anything about it other than to provide support. But she can't affect change. She can't make me better. She just has to sit there and suffer. And while everyone, it's human nature. The person that's sick is the person that's going to get a lot of the attention, because that's the person that could die, or they can get a lot worse very fast. And the person that is providing the support or suffering silently doesn't get their needs met a lot of the time.
Now, we have something extremely in common besides the love of two good women.
Devastating good looks?
Oh, thank God you said it, because it would have looked
It would have looked a little bit gauche.
Am I right? It would have looked gauche if I said it. But so this is what you do to Adam all the time. I could see now what happens. All right. But we have a coincidence thing.
What's that?
Coincidence. You in the book write about coincidences the way that I also believe in them. Oftentimes they are just coincidences, there's no doubt, but oftentimes when they're strung together in a certain way, you have a choice, and you can look at them as signs. And when you do, there's no doubt that a certain type of clarity springs forth from those coincidences.
Yeah, it's what everyone should have, and what I strive for in my life is to recognize patterns, and when there's signposts, maybe not even necessarily directing you the right way, but a little warning sign here or a little caution sign there, and you kind of, or a sign with an arrow pointing in that direction, and it could be as simple as the lady in the nail salon telling you to go see Dr. Keith Black for the fourth person in a row, and you're like, maybe I should start to pay attention to these people, or maybe there's this name's popping up over and over again for a reason.
Well, you said you even saw him on my show, and
I did.
As I said, I was going to surprise you with that fact when I had him, because he is this phenomenal doctor and human being.
He's a regal presence.
He has a presence and looks at the brain with such a soulful manner and
a reverence.
Exactly. And we both have this same theory about doctors as well. That first doctor, who was, just horrible. I have a thing, I go to a doctor and I tell him, if you don't make me feel good when I leave here, no matter what, you're worthless to me.
Right.
Because that's your job. And Dr. Black is one of those doctors.
Yeah.
You walk into that office, you were originally pronounced to be dead in 4 to 6 months, and boom, hopes. It's a whole different scenario now.
It really is. And it's funny because you're actually being, I named the Dr. Harold Kumar, who we're speaking of, I named him one of my worst people I've ever met. You're actually being harder on him than I am, because at the end of the day, I do believe he was doing his best. His best wasn't good enough, and it wasn't very good, but I don't believe he had malice in his heart. That said, I spoke about, I wrote my thoughts on medicine are, there's a reason to call it practicing medicine. No one knows everything. Dr. Black, as great as he is, doesn't know everything. He'll be the first to admit it. That's what makes him a great doctor. He's the first to admit, I don't know everything, I'm still learning. And that's why he's great, and that's why I sought him out.
And as great as he is, he can't treat you. Here is the greatest brain surgeon in the planet, or at least one of two or three.
You can't talk about the best without including him in the conversation.
You cannot. and he can't treat you.
Yeah.
But
I saw the wizard. I saw the man behind the curtain, and he said, no, can't help.
But he still leaves you knowing that you're going to be in good hands. He puts you in touch with a Dr. Rudnick, and boom, another doctor, obviously, because I think he's the head of brain surgery, Keith Black is.
Yes.
I think it's probably someone that he might have chosen, even for all I know. I don't really know the relationship.
I believe so, actually.
You know, but he puts you in touch, and again, you leave there, and he tells you right off the bat, we're going to beat this thing, or at least if we're not going to beat it, we're going to make a tie with it. It's not going to beat us.
Yeah, as opposed to, the attitude should never be no. The attitude should be maybe, here's how. You know what I mean? It's here's a roadmap. It might not be perfect, but this is what we're going to try. We have options. That's all people want to hear. Even if it is dire and even if it is bad news, they want to hear that there's a plan, or there's options, or there's a potential solution.
And like you said, statistics, what are statistics? I'm going to quote you. You are not a statistic. If you beat cancer, for example, then 100% of people in your specific situation beat cancer. Think of it that way.
Yeah.
So when they give you these statistics, it's never 100%. So you could be the 3, the 4, and then it's only a percentage of the population, which then narrows it much more from the people who have cancer. So everything is already
Easy for you to say.
Easy for no. Everything's already messed up when it comes to statistics.
Right.
So, you know, they have to go with that attitude of we can do something, because they're not God. And by the way, I'm going to tell my viewers right now, if you do not have a doctor that does that, get another doctor. Brian, you say the same thing in the book. Your doctor must make you feel better no matter what you have.
And not feel better from a health perspective, like inspire confidence, make you feel better about the plan. You're right. As I talked about statistics, if they say, 87% of people with this type of tumor die within 2 years, well, that could include older people, people with compromised immune systems, infants, people who live in rural areas and don't have access to medical care, people who don't want access to medical care, maybe for religious reasons, people in third world countries who literally don't have a doctor within 100 miles of them. So easy on the statistics. Everyone looks at statistics as though that's it. Well, that's what it is. 87 out of 100. Well, yeah, but keep in mind that when I was diagnosed, I was young. I was 29, 30 years old. I was relatively healthy. I ate a very healthy diet, and I had access to quality medical care, and I was also driven to seek out the best medical care. So you make your own statistics. You really do make your own statistics.
Your friend and best man at your wedding, JD, had some words. I just looked down and I said, if I read this whole thing, the show will be over. So I'm going to paraphrase it, though. But and I think, again, it's important, especially for people who are suffering from cancer and other kinds of debilitating diseases. And that was, he gave the example of being in a hole, and you feel like you're in a hole, and all you need is a little rock. And if you can find that rock to hold on to, you can then hold on to that rock and find another little rock. And that seemed, when he told you that form of thinking, that also helped the healing process, I'm certain of it.
Yeah, for sure. Funny footnote about that story. When he read the book, he forgot that he told me that story. So
that's not a funny footnote. I forget so many
I had to tell him, like, no, not only did you tell me that great metaphor, whether it was yours or not, you relayed that great metaphor to me. It helped me, and it made the book. So thank you very much. But yeah, when you're at the bottom of that well or that deep, dark hole and all looks lost, all you need are a couple of pebbles, just something to hold on to, something to set your foot onto, and then you look for another one. And all it takes is a few, and next thing you know, you're halfway out of that hole.
Now here's a tip again, and actually this wasn't a tip, this was just something you wrote in the book, but I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you do this with everything in life, you become a better human being, and that is this: you began to thank your cancer instead of cursing it. And I feel that if you can do that with everything in life, every time you feel you're cursed with something, you turn it around and thank it and use it and to the best of every ounce of you, I have not yet experienced it not working.
Wow. Yeah, that was a mind-blowing idea, concept for me. My best man, JD, gave me a CD, a meditation CD. That's one thing I got into when I was first diagnosed was meditation. It really helped to just quiet my mind and think about my problems in life and my state in life and what I was dealing with. And he gave me a CD that was a guided meditation. It was a woman talking very gently to you and about cancer specifically for cancer patients. And it said, it was an affirmations one. So it was all about thanking people and thanking things in your life and gratitude. And she said, in the middle of this guided meditation, and now I want you to thank your cancer. And I was like, what, did I hear that right? And she said, thank your cancer. It's given you new perspective on life. It's helped you value the things that are really important, and be thankful for the things that you now recognize are important, and you can prioritize your life now and tell the cancer, thank you, you've done your job, and you can go now. And it's an overly simplistic way to look at your situation, but it's also a brilliant way to look at your situation, to flip human nature. I'm not surprised if 100% of people look at cancer as this horrible thing and why me and blah, 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 and for obvious reasons, but to flip your thinking like that was just mind-blowing to me.
And it comes off in one of your tumor tips, and I'm going to read it now because you say this. You never know who's watching.
Yeah.
You never know whom you're inspiring either, just by being yourself. Just showing up every day with a smile on your face can brighten someone else's day.
Yeah.
And that's also a sense that you get after you make the realization of thanking your cancer, because you know now that there's power to that, and that power exists within you, and you almost want to share it. So you smile a little bit more, and you don't realize how many people you're now affecting, and then, well, it's that classic butterfly effect, how they're going to affect and they're going to affect, and it's a chain reaction that you hope goes viral.
Yeah, that specific thought came to me on a day, I think it might have been our last day at radiation. A guy came up to us and said, I've been coming here, this is my first day here, I'm terrified, but if we can, if I can look as good as you, not as good as you, but look as happy as you or whatever, have the look that you have on your face when I'm done, I'll be a happy man. And I said, wow, that's amazing, good luck, I hope you do great, because I didn't realize that I was inspiring him just by walking out of the room with a smile. And it's the cheapest and easiest way to make people happy.
Now, you have a scare. The tumor does not start to shrink at first.
Now it gets worse. Yeah.
It gets worse, but they do pull out the big guns, and we're getting close to our time, so I want to let people know that it has shrunk.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
The hero lives in the end.
The hero, he's standing right in front of me here, or sitting right in front of me. But there still was an element that came out of all of this, and it was regrets. And what you regret was, when you looked back at it, it was not the things that you did. You said there was a common thread. What you regretted were always almost the things you hadn't done.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, another, talk about a life lesson or a tumor tip or a piece of advice I want to share with the viewers, because oftentimes people will sit there and say, oh, I regret I did this, I regret I did that. Baloney.
Yeah.
Regret the things you didn't do.
Yeah. Take that chance or take that leap so you won't regret it. Yeah, when I was going through the darkest of the treatment and my sickness and my illness, and I would reflect back on my life and things that I wish I had done or things that I regretted not doing. And for the most part, it was, there were obviously things that, I wish I had done this, but for the most part, it was things, and big things and little things, that I hadn't done, or that that, like you said, I wish I had done this, or I'm regretful that I didn't have the chance to do that.
But you're making up for it now. That's the beauty of it. Sometimes regret's a motivating thing.
Yeah.
Our time is up, Bryan. I know it goes so fast. I want to end with a few different little passages. Okay. I've learned this, you write. Cancer is relentless. Cancer will never quit. And that is why we must be relentless, and why we must never quit. Never, ever quit. It's very Churchillian, Bryan, but I love it.
Thank you.
And Bryan, I know all your fans from the Adam Carolla Show and all the fans all the fans that you're going to make just on this book tour alone are also grateful.
Thank you so much. That's so nice of you to say that.
Well, it's my pleasure. And as we do, we knock on a little wood and say, keep it going, brother, because we love you here and we want you to stay.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure.
This is really fun.
Thank you. And thank you guys for joining us. Now, before Bryan leaves, I'd like to leave you with these few more words from Shrinkage. Don't dwell on things you've done, just like we just talked about, or haven't done. You can't change those things. Instead, always be moving forward. I'm Barry Kibrick. Between all the things you've done or haven't done, if you never, never, ever quit, you too will always be moving forward. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Closed captioning for Between the Lines with Barry Kibrick is made possible by your generous contributions to KLCS Education Foundation. Thank you for your support. To connect with Barry, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Barry Kibrick. And to contact Barry directly, watch past episodes of Between the Lines, and read his blog, visit us at barrykibrick.com.